Hi, and welcome to Clearing a Path to Your Health with Caroline. Today we have a fantastic show lined up for you. I'm super excited. First of all, thank you so much to my producer, Scott. And today we're going to be talking about the amazing power of your thoughts. And I'm going to dive really deep with this gorgeous lady. So I'll just tell you a little bit about her, and then you can help me welcome her. Sarah Cox is a really good friend of mine. She is a natural psychic who trained as an interfaith minister in 2007. She's been training people in personal empowerment and healing since 2002. And her latest venture is Zephorium, which is a divinely channeled product range of just the most gorgeous products. So we'll definitely talk about that during the show. I'm so in love with them, and I'm really happy that I'm going to be putting them on my website shortly. I always credit this wonderful woman with facilitating my journey to sobriety, so I'm always very grateful to her, and I'm delighted to introduce you onto my show today. So welcome, Sarah.
Oh, thank you, Caroline. It's really exciting to be here, and I was so thrilled that you wanted me on your show. So very excited.
Yeah, well, we have so much to talk about. So do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit, if there's anything else you want to say about yourself?
Well, I just wanted to start by saying what an amazing person you are, because you have taken all that I teach and gone into the world and produced the most wonderful things as well. So, you know, you're an absolute inspiration to me as well. So it's a joy to be speaking with you today. And just to say, you know, life has so many twists and turns, and who would have thought it? Probably for me about nearly 30 years ago, I was on my knees with depression and desperation and begging the universe to help me. And here I am all these years later, you know, head of a big company, been teaching thousands of people how to empower themselves with their thoughts. It's like a dream, really.
Well, I'm just so thank you very much for saying what you said, but also thrilled to know you, and I can't wait to share your knowledge and our discussions with my audience. So just to say, I have a really tickly throat today, so I'll try not to cough too much. But anyway, okay, so shall we launch right into it? So what would a good starting question be? Something along the lines of, why is it important that we watch what we think?
Oh, well, that is a big loaded question, isn't it? I'm such a believer of learning to have an independent thinking mind, because I think we have to be so careful who we're listening to, what we're listening to, and then what we think. So when we take control of our thoughts, it gives us back our freedom from all that anguish, from anxiety. You know, we become in control of ourselves rather than something or someone or past history, maybe our parents or teachers taking control of us. And yes, my greatest passion is to empower people to be free with their thinking. And, you know, there are many, many wonderful teachers who've gone before that I follow in their footsteps avidly, and combine all their great wisdom into what I teach, because really we're all trying to learn to be happy. And we get there from many different directions. But that is our goal, isn't it? We want to be free in our thinking and happy in our minds. And so if we don't have positive thoughts, you know, if we're really dogged with struggle and depression, then life is just going to be really miserable.
It is. And if I think back to when you and I met, so I'm guessing it was in 2007, actually, because that's the year I got sober, so it must have been. So I joined Sarah. She was running a course at the time, and it was one weekend a month. And in January I went on the course, and by the February I was in rehab in Kentucky, which is pretty outstanding when you think about it like that. It was literally, I'd met you for a weekend, but I was where you were. I knew my life wasn't working. I was desperately unhappy. I think I was probably a little bit suicidal, and just what's the point and all of that. But I have to say, when I first heard you saying those words, so if anybody's listening to Sarah saying those words and like, but it'll never happen for me, but I can't do that, but it's not possible for me, I really was in a place where I just couldn't hear you or anyone else. I'd read thousands of spiritual books and was just like, well, that's never going to happen for me. So Can we talk a little bit to the people that are, I mean, obviously I'm very different from that today, thank goodness. But can we talk to those people that really are stuck in their mindset as a like giving them a few like steps to get out of that, as it were?
I think that's a really good introduction, because so many people are just getting by with life and, you know, trying to do the best they can, but really not having the tools to enable them to escape from their thinking or the torturous mind that is controlling them. And I think one of the first things I would suggest, and certainly it was for me, was to get on your knees and ask for help. Because the truth is, when our lives are painful and difficult, we are so busy coping that we don't realize that there could be something greater than ourselves that could help us to find peace and a different way of living and being. And so the minute you ask for help, the universe is absolutely on its knees before you, saying, here I am, darling, here I am, darling, here's this teacher, here's that teacher, here's this book, and it's all there. The hardest thing is the first step.
Yes.
That is reaching out for help, because usually, as whatever's gone on in our childhood, we are used to having to battle for ourselves, and we don't believe that there's anyone out there that can help us.
That was exactly what I was thinking. I didn't believe that anyone or anything. I mean, I don't think I believed in a higher power or anything like that before, but it was just, I am so alone. I have to do everything myself and I can't cope. It's too hard. So the only solution that I could see in those days, apart from drinking 3 or 4 bottles of wine a day, was taking myself off, and no one would miss me anyway. I mean, it really was very, very dark. So yes, what you're saying is absolutely right. Sometimes you have to just do something different, don't you?
Well, you do. And the trouble is, you don't usually realize that yourself until you get to the point where you're so desperate you can't go on. And for me, I was hanging on by my fingernails, literally. You know, I just couldn't see the point in anything. I was depressed. I was on antidepressants. Everything in my life was a disaster. Every relationship was falling apart. My business had crumbled. You know, the whole lot hit the deck with me alongside it. And then I finally, in that place of surrender, I finally asked for help from the universe. And it came very fast, in the shape for me of a lovely woman called Anne Yarwood, who, she's in her 80s now, and she mentored me and she counseled me. But what she did more than anything was love me. She loved me, and she could see who I was, and she could see beyond the failed relationships and the messed up life. And she just let me be. And in her presence, I was sort of able to collapse fully, which is what I needed. And in that collapsing, energetically, if you like, she held me. And she made it okay for me to just cry and cry and cry. And I remember thinking, if I let go, there'll just be a puddle on the floor. And there won't actually be a Sarah. There won't be anything solid, because I just felt so full of tears and grief. And then slowly she helped me to really realize that, you know, there is help out there. And so began my journey. And one of the first things I did was to buy a book on positive thinking. And in those days, so we're talking, you know, nearly 30 years ago, there was not a lot around. I bought one book and I opened the first page and it said, "You are a beloved child of the universe," or something. And I thought, what a load of rubbish. What a load of rubbish. This book obviously doesn't know who I am. And so but I read it every day to myself, and in the morning and night, just one page at a time. And slowly things began to change in my mind. And that was the first inkling I had that you can change your thoughts. It might not feel easy at first, but you can do it no matter where you are. And I think I remember, Caroline, when we first met and were working together, I think you were quite resistant, if I recall, initially.
Oh, completely. You were wrong, because you were already, happy and shining your light, and I could never be like you, so you didn't know who I was. So exactly what you said. But actually, when you were talking just then, I thought actually Anya would put us together. Do you remember I met you and Yvette because we were at her house doing a workshop, so she brought us together too. That's really exciting. But no, I did not believe that happy people could teach me how to be happy. And I just don't think, I still sometimes struggle with the universe is kind, the universe has got my back, I'm going to be okay. But one of my greatest gifts was the hardest lesson I've had to learn, which was look back over your shoulder and see how many times you've actually fallen over and got back up. Oh, yeah, actually, every single time I've fallen over, I've got back up. And that was a really hard lesson because, you know, there's been some quite deep trauma and some really dreadful times. But yeah, I'm still here. Whoopee. And as soon as I realized I'm still here, so there must be something for me to do. I'm not dead. Like that, I think for me, that was. But yeah, they told me in treatment I was really stubborn and I was very defensive. And, and I was, because I was just so attacked, I suppose. But now I look back, I'm slightly embarrassed because I wouldn't have liked me back then because I just hated myself so deeply. So thank you for loving me at a time when I didn't know who I was or that I was lovable.
Yeah, I think it's the most powerful thing we can do for another person who is expressing all of their pain and their grief and their sadness and their rage. And what I do is I hold the vision of their perfection because that's what I truly see. Once I learned to see myself in that light, I realized that when I hold other people in that vision, over time, slowly they step into the vision I have for them. So I don't buy into all their stuff and stories. You know, of course, they're real and I'm sympathetic to their traumas and so on. But I also hold this higher vision of their perfection and I wait until they can take it back for themselves. I hold it as a gift for them. And I just love it. It's beautiful.
All I can say is you must be a very patient lady for me. Thank you. Okay, so I would like to introduce a very big player into this debate, and that is something I think that is the root cause of most of our pain, and that is called the ego. So, you know, for me, we're all born as free children of God, and then depending on the circumstances of your childhood or your teenager or what happens to you in life, there is this constant thing. And what I learned is that my mother, you know, what she said to me was very cruel, and I swallowed it hook, line and sinker, as most children do. But as I got into my adulthood, I made it 100 times worse. So I was vicious in the way I talked to myself. And I can't even believe I'm going to say some of the things, but I'd be having this conversation with you and I'd be thinking, well, she doesn't like me. And why should I bother speaking to her? Because, you know, I'm never going to be understood by her. And she's probably thinking that someone over there is more. I mean, it was just insane, but that was 24 hours a day. So I now know that that's my ego. And it has a vested interest keeping us in pain and sorrow and all the rest of it. So I'd like to ask you, why do you think that is, and what it is that you can do to rein in that ego that's hell-bent on destroying you emotionally and move into something that's a lot more happy and loving?
Yeah, I think brilliant question, you know, and obviously a really big one, isn't it, for us to answer. But I think for me, you know, the ego gets a really bad press because we need the ego in order to survive. It stops us walking out in front of cars, stops us throwing ourselves on a fire. You know, we do need an ego because if you change the word ego for survival, I think survival is a much nicer word than the ego. And the ego, if you see it in terms of survival, is just trying to keep us firstly sane and alive. Now, when we have repetitive thoughts, a lot of them come from a place of addiction.
Yes.
And always, you know, I have huge compassion for addiction. I come from a story of codependency and having spent many relationships with addicts of various kind. I know the story really well. Now, what I feel is that when we are wounded, we are looking to self-medicate, obviously. And if our parents are not placating us in the right way that we need, or we're not able to find that from other people, what we tend to do is then we try and get a hit to help us feel better. And if you think about humanity, we are sort of wired, we're hardwired to become, for life to get better and better. So we're always looking for things that will make life easier and more pleasurable. And if life, when we're children, is painful, we are really hell-bent on trying to make it better, because that's called survival. And that's what we call the ego. So what we're looking for is some kind of euphoria in all the pain. And what we tend to do is when we're in pain and we're children, we don't have the emotional intelligence to process the feelings that we're experiencing. So we look for some kind of distraction which will take us away from the pain. Now, that can be in many, many forms. We can start hitting the cookies and the sugar. We can start going for food. We can go for behavior, repetitive behavior. And as we get older, this begins to change into things like maybe workaholism or love addiction or spirituality addiction, or all sorts of things, or alcoholism, gambling. We know all of those. And what we're trying to do, no matter how we try and do it, is to try and distract ourselves from the pain and find some kind of euphoric feeling. Now, what's so ironic is often with children who are not nourished properly emotionally, when they are, let's say, having repetitive thoughts that maybe their parents put into their brain, that they're not good enough, they're not worthy, it's better to have those thoughts than no thoughts at all. So we can almost get a euphoric hit in the brain from having negative thoughts, because in a way, at least we had our parents' attention.
Yeah.
So when our parents are saying, you bad person, and locking us up in cupboards or whatever they did, or, whatever it might be, that's better than having no attention. And so we are trained by our parents very young in those sorts of situations to be doing it ourselves, because otherwise the alternative feels like annihilation, which is sort of nothingness. Do you see what I'm saying?
Completely. And I just want to interject and say, when I was in the treatment centre, the lady who ran the treatment centre said, would you edit this book for me? And I'm like, sure, I'll read it. There's really not much to do in Kentucky. Well, in this particular place in Kentucky anyway. And it was called Recovery from Misery Addiction. And by the end of the book, I was like, oh, Lordy, I am such a misery addict. And how do you spot a misery addict? Hi, Sarah, how are you? Well, this happened that was really awful, and that happened that was really awful, and my whole life is really awful. So they love to tell you all about their woes, but they tell you about their woes, and they tell the next person about their woes, and the next person about their woes, but they never do anything to make life better or decisions that. So it was just ironic that she asked me to edit the book, and so I'm now a recovering misery addict amongst them. But yet you get addicted. You're absolutely right to. Like if when you're growing up the home is chaotic or dangerous or something, you get addicted to recreating that, not because it's good or you enjoy it, because it's what you know. So you find like ladies who grow up in that sort of environment go for really chaotic, dangerous men, for example, because it's what they know and it's comfortable, even though it's really, really dangerous. Yeah. So, yeah, I totally agree with you.
This is the way that we work. It seems so illogical, but at the time it's logical, because it becomes our normal. And as our brain is wiring up when we're young, when we're children, all the neural pathways are forming. And so when we repeat something, it becomes our normal. And, one of the questions when I'm working with couples, I always say to them, what would be a normal meal for you? And they both have completely different ideas because they come from different backgrounds. So a normal meal would be one would say you have a starter, a main course and a pudding. The other one would say, no, you don't. You just have a main course. Simple things like that. And they found with children, if they have a negative phrase repeated to them 3 times, believe it after 3 times. So if you're told you're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid 3 times over a period of time, that becomes your belief system. And most people never, ever question it from that day onwards. They live their life as if they're stupid because that was the neural programming in their brain.
And let's expand on that just a little bit. So if I'm told I'm stupid, what does that look like in an adult life? I won't try so hard. I won't, push my brain in any way. I certainly won't, do things which would require, entry because I don't think I can succeed because I'm stupid. And this is a lot of the work that I do. I totally agree with you. 3 times you have to say, you're fat, you're fat, you're fat. And then the child's like, oh, I'm fat. Well, I might as well eat then. So a lot of the work I do with my intuitive healing is I go back to that time and I take out the emotional charge from that belief system. And it's really powerful. But like totally understanding that child loves mum. So if mum's really fat, I want to be fat as a child because mum's fat and I love her. Yeah. So it's just crazy the way the child's brain can't cope with anything apart from, okay, mum's safety, mum's security. If she's violent and mean and cruel, I love that in a person because I love my mum, whether or not she was kind. It's just, childhood is really, really dodgy, I think.
It amazes me that so many children get through it, actually. I just childhood you're doing really well because I agree, and I'm sure with your healing work that you do with people, getting them back to that place of trauma and then reprogramming it is just the most wonderful thing to do for somebody.
Because people change physically, belief systems have this is why I wanted to have this chat with you, because belief systems really do form the fundamental basis for your health, for your well-being, for your relationships, for everything. It's crazy. Your opinions about money, just everything. Because if I don't believe I deserve it, I won't get it. And I really do believe that's one of my biggest learnings this lifetime, is that, oh, okay, I do deserve to be here and want to be here and all of those things. So I'm a bit of a slow student, but I'm getting there.
We're all slow students. I'm learning. I'm finished by any stretch of the imagination, and I think one of the things that appeals to me very much is in this lifetime at this time is we've got so much scientific information at our fingertips. We've got so much life experience between us all. We did the counseling thing for years. We've kind of got to a place now where we're really looking at epigenetics, which is the study of chemicals on the cells of our body. And you are absolutely right, because, what you think and believe is more powerful than anything you put into your body. And every cell in your body is responding to that. And your DNA opens and expresses itself in direct relationship to the chemicals that impact the cells. Now, when I say chemicals, thoughts in your brain create chemicals that then flood your cells. And this is the power that we have. We have incredible power with all this scientific knowledge, with all the training of these wonderful people that have gone before us to explain that what you think is what you become.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But I love to go back to the ego because I'm fascinated with this. So what do you think? So you said survival, which I love that. And thank you for giving me that, because that's really great. But it's almost as if for some people, you teach them that thoughts are their, key to freedom, and off they go and their life becomes outstanding immediately. Yeah. Or not, whatever. But for other people, they, like me, they just don't get it for the longest time. And I'm wondering if that's my personality, if that's my conditioning, if I just don't feel worthy. I don't know if that's it or something. But something in me really just didn't want to believe that it could happen. I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm hoping you'll pick up on it, because I don't understand why for some people it's super easy and for others it's not. So could we talk to that a little bit?
No, I have yet to meet somebody who gets it straight away and goes off skipping into the, with it all resolved. It doesn't seem to be the way that we are. We're all learning, aren't we? And I think I love the quote by Marianne Williamson. I'm probably misquoting it, but it's not our darkness that frightens us, it's our light.
Yes.
If I said to you, Caroline, gosh, you're going to have an amazing life filled with joy, fabulous friendships and relationships, loads of money, isn't it going to be wonderful? You're going to be laughing all day long. How do you feel?
I'm like, well, that's not my life. Straight away, immediately. I hate to admit that I do.
I know. This is normal, isn't it? Because we're not used to letting it in. And so my passion now, because I've worked for, nearly 3 decades with people doing all sorts of modalities of healing and faith and all sorts of things. My absolute passion is changing that brain state. And it is harder. Once we're over the age of 35, it is harder because our neural pathways are more fixed. So we have to work it all the time. And for me, I work it every day. So I begin my day with a 20-minute meditation. And if I don't do that, my day is so different to the days when I meditate. So I realize that that's not optional. If I want to be happy, it's not optional. And then when you want to change a belief in your brain, it does take about, between 30 and 50 days. It's all very well saying, oh, I'm the latest guru and I can change your brain state in 2 hours and come to my workshop. And that's fine for the period when you're at that workshop. But 2 days later, people hit the deck because it doesn't last. It's not changing the neural pathways in a way that is going to be sustaining. That's what comes after those workshops, when you then have to do the work yourself. And
we're not conditioned to do that, are we? Like in England, you go to the doctor, please give me something to make me well. And there isn't ever any, but you need to exercise and eat good food. And we know all this, but we still expect somebody outside of us to make us well. And I think it's the same with what you're saying. Doing the work is hard. I can speak from experience. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But man, the rewards are incredible. I mean, I wouldn't be able to have this conversation with you if I hadn't worked really, really hard on myself, because I wouldn't believe I was worth it. It is incredible. And also, I was just thinking when you were talking then, I was thinking, my day was 24 hours of I hate myself, I'd be better off dead, literally all day, every day. And I don't think that now. And I have time to think positive thoughts, and it's great, So, yes, I've come a long way. But I just think it's really interesting, especially at this time when we're trying to find out what the truth is and everything like that. And yeah, there seems to be a bit of madness out there, but let's not go there.
Well, okay. A bit of madness in us all, isn't there? And that's where the work is. Not to be worrying about what anyone else is doing, but think to yourself, am I part of the solution or am I part of the problem? Yes. And so it's about going within, taking full responsibility for your thoughts. I always think that when we're thinking a hateful thought about somebody else, for example, or, or people or whatever, it's as if we've got this bomb and we're just lobbing these bombs out into the world with our thoughts. And then when somebody starts acting it out, we blame them rather than think, how am I contributing with that, with my negative thoughts and my hateful wishes? What is my responsibility here? Yes. And so, this is the power of going within, taking time to meditate every day, working on those thoughts, finding people who like you, respect you, and spending time with them.
Yes.
Not wasting your time with people who play games or who are cruel or mean. Just walk away and let yourself find your tribe, those people who love you just the way you are, and find somebody, because if you ask the universe, they will appear, who can hold you in that vision that you're not maybe yet able to see yourself. I'm not saying you, Caroline, because I think you do.
Thank you.
Remember as well, Caroline, that we've been through all this stuff so that we can help other people. How could we help people if we didn't know that it is a struggle? Is it helpful when somebody stands up full of light and joy and bliss and says, "Oh, be like me"? No, it's more helpful.
Plus, no, I would be throwing a bomb at them. No, I'm kidding. But that makes me think that, for the longest time, I really, and I mean deeply, hated those that had done what they'd done to me and made me feel and blah, 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 real victim. Yeah. But I don't blame myself because that's what I'd been brought up by. But today, I can honestly say I'm so grateful for the abuse and the trauma and the really dark childhood that I suffered, I think is the word I use there, because now I can sit next to anybody in any amount of pain and just say, I see you, because I do, I really, really understand. And that's such a gift, and I'm so blessed. And it took a lot of therapy to get there, but that's where I'm at now. And, it's really interesting. I was talking to a really good friend the other day, and I was saying, I don't really get on with people that have had a sort of silver spoon in their mouth and mum and dad love them. And, I just don't have anything to say to people like that. My tribe is definitely those of us that have had a really tough time of it and have survived and got through and now are shining because we're on the right path for us, as it were, because, just because I did the thing that I did to get to where I am doesn't mean to say that's right for you. Everybody listening to this, you have to choose your own path, and you have to, know what gifts you've got and how to share them with the world. But I'm so grateful today, and that is shocking.
It's so good to hear. And had you not been through all that, you wouldn't be having this radio show and touching all of these people that you are now. And so as long as my feeling is when we get through trauma and we've moved through it, it's our duty to turn back, put our hand out to all those people who are behind us, who need help, and help them to get to the place where we are. I think it's just a part of what we came here to do. And you can't do it if you've read about it in books, but you haven't lived it.
No. And actually, this leads me on to another topic, if I may. So I don't know when this thought came to me, but it really, I would say early teens, probably. I've had this deep conviction that as I heal myself, I heal the whole. And I came across that in a lot of new age stuff, and I was like, oh, I hope I didn't, steal it from there. But it was so true for me. And then I want to address the subject, I think, of collective trauma. So when there's a wonderful lady who comes onto my show sometimes and comments, when I lost everything in the fire in 2018, her whole town burnt down. So Paradise, it's called, in the US. And what I dealt with was really traumatic, but I can't imagine how horrible it must be if you and everybody around you loses absolutely everything. So in healing myself, I'm healing the whole, but I don't know how that fits in with collective trauma and, natural phenomena happening like the tsunami. And yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, well, I think the way that I've always seen that, I've been a natural psychic all my life. And at my lowest of low points, when I've been on my knees asking for help, what I've always been shown is that there is such a massive number of people now, they call us the light workers, whatever it might be, who've come out of trauma and who are leading this path forward for others. And it's as if we're at the head of a wave, and we're kind of the white breaker at the top of the wave. And behind us, we're pulling up this whole sort of this big wave, the weight of so much pain and suffering. We're pulling it up out of, I don't know, some kind of muddy pool where it's been and towards it. And I think it can either be, we do it individually, we do it collectively, but also I think we have to be very careful what we judge as trauma for another.
Yes.
Because my dad, who's, bless him, is 99 years old, and he was in the D-Day landings in the Second World War. And I've spoken over the years to people that he's known, and they all said they never felt more alive than in the war, that it was the highlight of their life. Obviously, they survived, so, they had for them. But there's something about being in a difficult situation, when you lost all your possessions to a fire, where you're just standing there, weren't you? You were standing there with nothing, and you were almost sort of being born again, because you didn't have anything to do. And if I said to you, I'm sure, that going through it was very traumatic, but if I said to you now, can you maybe see why that happened? I'm sure you could give me 1,000 reasons why it happened.
Actually, the angels told me, not soon after, because I don't think I'd have been able to hear it, but they said we needed it to be really traumatic for you, traumatic, which it was, because it was the best bonfire I've ever seen. But I mean, I'm saying that glibly, but I was transfixed. I couldn't move for about 3 hours. It was bizarre. Anyway, but they said we had to have it so dramatic so that we cracked you wide open, and lots of the old stuff could come up, as well as the grief for the fire. And this is how care farming was born. I'm so happy that it happened. I wasn't for the longest time, but, and it's been tough, and starting again in your 50s is not fun, but okay, I'm alive and I've got things and people love me, and that's great. But, yeah, I was crying. I love this. I had this tiny piece of land, and there was lots of beautiful cows around me and nobody else. And so I could scream and cry and, holler and shout at the universe quite freely. I upset the cows a few times, I know that. But most of the time they were just there loving me, because, I was just sobbing and stuff. But nobody was coming. So I kind of just gave myself permission. I was like, right, this is it. You're going to take advantage of this situation. And then a man came onto the farm, and I don't remember inviting him. I may have done, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I've just discovered how amazing it is to be able to be out in nature when you're processing, because, literally she just absorbs everything from you. It's amazing. He said, well, you're talking about care farming. Do you know what it is? And I was like, no. So he told me to go on a weekend workshop, which I did, and met these phenomenal people. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So that's why I'm setting up a care farm. So yeah, I'm really, it was horrendous, but the amount of people that said to me, I was so shocked by the outpouring of love. That's never happened to me before. I don't think I'd ever really felt anybody's love. I know people did love me, but I just couldn't feel it. But this was like overwhelming, and people who'd never met me were sending me iPads and coats, and you sent me some of your lovely products, which I still use. Thank you very much. But it was overwhelming, but fantastic too, because I now know how loved I am, which is such a blessing. And it gives me hope when I can, exactly what you said, when I can go out and help other people with PTSD. I'm so delighted that that's what I'm going to be doing.
Well, Caroline, you said that you had decades of telling yourself how unloved you were and how unworthy you are. Yeah. The universe burnt down everything you owned to show you that you are absolutely loved by everyone you know. Yeah. That story you were telling yourself wasn't true. And I love the Leonard Cohen song. I'm not quite sure what it's called, but there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in.
Yes, I love that too.
When we are resistant, and you and I both were in our early days very resistant, because we had to become very strong. So, but there was a crack. And so if we don't let the light in naturally, then we will be blown apart. And there's a lovely Sufi poem. And it says, you can either go to dancing to God, dancing with joy, or you can be carried there on a stretcher. But either way, I love it, don't you? That is going. And so you were probably not listening. You were probably resistant. And so bang, there we go. Caroline is loved.
Yes, and in such a dramatic way. I don't think I'll be forgetting that one in a hurry. But I do. I I do see, I mean, it's, hindsight is such a beautiful gift, isn't it? I look back and I think I couldn't have done any better with the circumstances because I wasn't given any tools. Basically, we brought each other up, me and my sisters. And then, mum and dad did the best they could, but it was rubbish, bless them, because their childhoods were rubbish too. So they didn't have anything to give us. So now the fact that I'm a healer, it makes me laugh through and through. Here's this really empathetic, sympathetic, loving, I have a huge heart, but I didn't know that until I got sober because I'd never had an excuse to trot it out and show it to the world, as it were. But I was born into a really dark, horrible family. And, the irony is so, I must have been drunk when I agreed to that before I came down. But now I can see, I posted this in my group and Spiritual Growth Tools on Facebook. I just posted, don't blame those that didn't love you. They were just teaching you how to love yourself. And I truly believe that I've been rejected so wholeheartedly so that I can learn to love myself. And like you say, I wasn't the best student, so they had to burn everything I owned. But finally, I got to the point where I knew that I was loved, and that is the point of this lifetime. I really do believe that. So
from that moment on, your life changes in that you then reach behind you and you find all those broken people who also have had those feelings and you pull them forward. You're the crest of that wave.
Oh, I'm getting goosebumps. Thank you. Yes, but I mean, you're the same. And if I think back to those days when we were working together, we weren't working together. I was learning from you at the time. I just didn't trust. And now I think I'm ridiculously trusting to the point I have no idea how I'm going to find the funding for this project. I have no idea who's going to come, but I kind of know it's coming. So I'll just one foot in front of the other and let's see how we do. It's insane. I've totally swung to the opposite. And, I know that I'm going to share this with the listeners. Erica, who is also on 1-2-Listen, she's a wonderful friend of mine. I think you might know her, Sarah. She gave me this tip the other day and she said, my income is always increasing. And I started saying it and my income has quadrupled. I mean, literally, it's insane. People are reaching out to me from 15 years ago. Oh, I fancy a session now. I've got one of your leaflets. And it's insane. So I'm going to keep saying that. But that's just one example. So let's talk about other examples, possibly, to give the listeners, something that's easy to remember and they can start saying in their lives.
Well, I think this is why I set up my company, Zephorium, because I was just saying the same things to people over and over. And so I created the Chakra, the aura sprays, and every bottle has the positive affirmation related.
I do.
So the yellow, the solar, is I am abundant in everything I ask for, I receive with gratitude. The base, the red, I am a strong, powerful creator. I am safe and loved. Now, these are not glib statements. No. These are statements that absolutely impact your body, the cells in your body, and then the way that you express your life. So, the throat chakra, so particularly I find with women, where so much truth gets jammed and stuck, is, I speak my truth with courage and integrity. So when people spray them and use them daily and keep using them, this is where we begin to change our destiny by changing the brain state. And that's why I do what I do now, because I feel it's so powerful in terms of transformation. So it can be whatever statement you want to be changing, but if you can align it with your chakras and you can repeat the affirmation, use the spray, they've got homeopathic crystals in them relating to the chakras, you will absolutely change your state, your brain, your body chemistry, the whole lot. Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more. And they smell divine. Now, just so you know, I'm going to be putting them on my website, so you're all very welcome to go and visit that in about a week. I'll let you know where they are. But Sarah but you channeled them, didn't you? Do you want to tell the story of that?
Yeah, well, I'd just moved house. I've moved across the country, and I was absolutely exhausted. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, my guide woke me up and said, "Sarah, you've got to write this down." And I said, "You have got to be joking." I was exhausted, but I'm a very dutiful these days, very obedient. I've been trained into trusting. So I got my pen and paper out and basically wrote down the whole of the business, which was the chakras, the affirmations on each bottle, the what aromatherapy I had to use, where to buy it, the colours of the bottles, which are very specific frequencies, and the homeopathy that goes in them. And when I started them, I thought, gosh, because I was just, I was a therapist and a minister, and I was thinking, what is this about? And my guide said to me, they'll be all over the world and they'll be in the hands of influential people. And I said, well, how are you going to do that then? Because it's about business. And within a few months, they were actually all over America at the time, and they were in the hands of one of the Middle Eastern royalty, who put them in all of their guest suites in their palaces for all of the visiting dignitaries. So, and various yoga teachers have been using them with, states, people who are presidents and all sorts of things. So, I just couldn't possibly have dreamed it. But like you were saying, I put one foot in front of the other. I just trust that the universe loves me and adores me. And I ask to be in service and helpful. And I never think about my business plan. I don't have one. I just go daily with what feels right. And I'm just meeting the most fabulous people. Because, I think if you start something with the right intention and you just have that attitude of being used as a channel, then incredible things can happen.
They really can. And I think I even did a workshop with you once, which was the power of your thoughts. And I think even that day I went home feeling really depressed. So I'm very different to who I was before. But I want to say I'm so grateful for you for holding me in that vision that you still hold me in, and I'm finding her slowly. Bless me. So sorry.
You bless you.
I know, but if we're not laughing about it, then truly, life can be really, really hard work. I am seeing the comments in the chat room. I'm afraid there's no time for readings, ladies, today. As you can understand, I love talking to Sarah. Now, I will say, Sarah, we were going to talk about codependency, but it looks like we've run out of time. So what I'd love to do is get you back on another time, and we'll just talk about codependency, because it's such a huge subject, and it is, I think, pretty much everyone on the planet is codependent. So starting to learn how to love yourself and value yourself. Would you want to come back and talk about that?
It'd be amazing. It's one of my great passions, because I'm come from codependency. So yeah, I'd love to. That would be really fun.
Yeah, let's just do that. Like just the show on codependency. It's really difficult to talk to you. I am joking. We could talk for England. Okay, so I'm seeing the time. So do you want to let everybody know how to get hold of you, what work you offer, and so on and so forth?
Okay, yeah. Well, my website is www.zoforium.com. So that's ZEPHORIUM.com. And I could do a whole show about just how that name came about. I do I'm all of my training now onto the internet, so it can be downloaded, because I've got stockists all over the world now. I used to teach people in person, but I can't quite do that anymore. So everything will be on there. It's coming on slowly. All the products are there, but also they can order from you, I think, Caroline, as well.
Within the week, hopefully. Yeah, they should be able to. So, I'll just put my website in. So spiritualgrowthtools.co.uk is where they're going to be. But I have to actually find the time to put them on there, which at the moment is a bit challenging. But I only put things on my website that I highly, highly, highly recommend. So, yes, I will be definitely putting your products on, Sarah.
Bless you. That's so sweet of you, Caroline. Thank you.
Welcome. So are you still doing healings and things like that remotely? Is that something you do?
No, I don't really have the time now, as I mostly do training. What I'm passionate about teaching people how to be psychic. So what I've been doing during lockdown is I actually put it out to all my stockists if anyone would like to come and do Zoom psychic development. And I thought, well, I don't know how this is going to work, but we have had the most wonderful time and I'm absolutely loving it. So I'm probably going to put it out there again. And so what's so beautiful, if anybody from America or around the world wants to join us, they can. So I just do little blocks of 6 and keep the cost low because I just want to get everybody empowered. And so that's something that, I'm really loving. And I'm just adoring meeting all my stockists and chatting with them online and all the questions. And then I've opened a little salon here in England, in Petersfield, where we're using the facial products in treatments because I just want women and men to know that they're lovely and glorious and beautiful. And so everything is natural and it's all about positivity and affirmations and joy and making people feel wonderful and then teaching them how to do it themselves. I do some counselling work, but I do sort of spiritual counselling, which combines all my skills. And I work with a lot of addiction like that. So that's my kind of really grounding thing that I do as well.
Okay. And all of that can be found on Zephorium.com.
It can, yes.
Perfect. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say to everyone listening, I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. Thank you so much for coming on, Sarah. I really appreciate your time and definitely be hooking up with you to bring you back on to talk about codependency because that's something we can definitely chew the cud over. So thank you for coming on and I look forward to speaking to you very soon and I probably will do that when I need to put your products on my website. But thanks so much for coming, Sarah.
It's a pleasure. It's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Caroline.
You're welcome. Lots of love to you and your dad and to, oh gosh, I forgot the name of your partner, Graham. There we are. Okay, so next show for me is on the 10th of August and I'm having Jay Varvel on. I'm very excited about that. He is a fellow 1-2 Listen colleague and we're going to be talking about health and terrifyingly for me, he's encouraging me to do a Facebook Live at the same time. So if you want a good giggle, ladies, because I get very, very nervous, I'm going to try because it's always good to try things you don't know how to do. So wish me luck for that one. Just quickly then before we go to break. So I have started doing... Thank you. I have started doing wellness scopes, which you can look at there, each different star sign and a little bit of a forecast. So we've got July's up there. I've just loaded August's up. I've also got group sessions on 1-2 Listen, which you can have a look at, dealing with most of the major emotional issues that affect us from day to day. And also, of course, there's my intuitive healing sessions, which you're very welcome to take a look at those as well. So thank you very much for listening. I've thoroughly enjoyed this show. And I look forward to the show on the 10th of July, which is the next time we'll be back. And then I will do the replay and put it on my YouTube channel. Okay, so back to you, Scott. And thanks, everybody, for listening in today.